Hello and welcome to this new video. In the previous video, we discovered and implemented the title storage service, and I showed you how to use this service to provide stats and leaderboard names to clients dynamically. In this video, we will address a new topic. It is the topic of player reports and sanctions. The context is therefore revolves around the security of the game in order to create an environment protected against cheaters. We will therefore allow the player to report abnormal behavior of another player, which will result in the application of a sanction to the reported player if the report is approved. It should be noted that each OSS has its own report and sanction API. For this reason, the Unreal Engine online interfaces do not offer any interface to interact with this service. It is up to you to implement the APIs of your target OSS to integrate these features into your game. In the case of EOS, the Easy OSS Plugin offers you as added value the features that allow you to integrate this service into your game. We always continue to grow the plugin to offer these features for other OSS. What should be noted is that this video is applicable for EOS OSS only. If you go to the dev portal, then in the player reports or sanctions sections, you will have the dashboard in which the reports submitted by the players will be displayed, also the sanctions applied to user by the developer. You can also go to the documentation of these interfaces to learn how to implement and integrate these services into your game. The plugin implements the API features concerning the game client. On the other hand, there are other endpoints of this API which are dedicated to the developer, and therefore it is up to you to implement them in a code external to the game if you want to use them. Regarding the player report service, the plugin implements the API endpoint that allows a player to create and submit a report to the backend. You will therefore see that the plugin respects the HTTP request body of this table. In other words, the API specification defined by EOS. To start, I want to implement the system allowing the player to report an abnormal behavior of another player. In a real game, it is necessary to offer this possibility to a player following the end of the match he played. In this video, to keep things simple, I want to add a report button that is displayed in the table displaying the list of players' friends. So I want to allow the player to report his friends, so the work will be in the friend item widget. So add this button to the right of the invite button. Change the name of the button and the text inside. I want to make some display adjustments. You can follow me if you want. Select the report button, then add the on-clicked event. To report a player, call the Easy OSS task, Create EOS Player Report, for EOS OSS. This task needs the trusted server artifact, because this task must ask the API to provide a token to the client that will create a report, and then it requires a write from a trusted server. The other inputs represent the fields specified by the API to create a report. Basically, we must provide the product user ID of the reporter and the reported players, the time at which this report is created, a category of the report, and a message. We see that our game must display a UI to the player which allows him to provide this information when the button is clicked. I can hard code these inputs to show you the functionality, but I prefer to do something practical, so I want to create this widget which is used to offer the fields to be filled in by the player. As we already did for the error message widget, I will duplicate this widget to add it to the notification macro. So open the macro library to add the macro that is used to display the player report widget. To save time, I want to duplicate the error message macro. We will see later when the widget is created, the inputs to provide to this macro. Before duplicating the error message widget, I want to adjust the display. You can skip this part if you want. I now want to duplicate the error message widget to create the player report widget. Rename the button and its text. Delete these three texts. Go to the event graph, then delete the implementations. Add a combo box that will contain the report types. Add an editable multiline text that represents the message defined by the player when reporting. Wrap these two elements with size boxes to adjust the display. Select the combo box, then add the event on opening. What we are going to do here is to define the options of this combo box, therefore the report types. The reason type is an enum of type EOS report reason, so just loop through this enum to extract the options. For each element of the enum, add an option to the combo box. Once the loop is finished, set the default selected option of the combo box, which will be the first element of this enum. Add the event on selection changed of this combo box. Add a string variable that represents the current selected option. Update this variable once the options are set. Then do the same once the selection changes. Select the Report button, then add the on-clicked event. Call the task Create EOS Player Report to create and submit the report. We must define the structure representing the trusted server artifact. I will do it via a make. I recommend you to define this structure in the game instance because it is unique and it can be used for several subjects such as the voice chat that we have already presented. Make sure you copy the artifact of the trusted server and not the client one. The reporting product user ID will be that of the local player. The reported product user ID will be that of the friend according to my example. We must therefore define it as an editable variable in order to pass it to the widget. Time must be a string representing the time according to ISO 8601, otherwise the task will fail by returning you an HTTP 400 response. The plugin offers you two nodes allowing you to get the current date time. The first returns the current time on your machine, and the second the current UTC. We must work with the UTC time. We now need to convert the returned date time structure to ISO 8601 string. To do this, the plugin offers you the node convert datetime to ISO 8601 formatted string. The reason type must be the one selected via the combo box. We must therefore loop through the enum to find the correct element of the enum to provide according to the selected string option. The message will be the content of the editable text. I display a message on the screen if the report is created, and an error message otherwise. We must kill the widget once finished. Return to the macro library to modify the report macro by providing it with the widget that we created. Connect the reported product user ID to the macro input. Return to Friend Item widget to show Report UI when Report button is clicked. Get the product user ID of the reported player using the OSS friend variable. Before running a test, I want to adjust the display of the Player Friends widget. You can skip this part if you want. One last thing to fix. In fact, it is not optimizable to fill the combo box at each opening. It is enough to do them only once in the event construct. Therefore, replace the event by the event on construct. Launch a client for testing. The display is not pleasant, it needs to be reworked. It doesn't matter, what interests me is the backend. Click the Report button of the Friend Player 2. Here, the Report UI is open. The default reason is cheating. If you click on the combo box, you will see all the possible reasons. I will create a cheating type report by specifying a short message. Click on Report. Here, the report is created and the widget has been killed. Go to the Player Report section of the Dev portal. And there you have it, we have a new report. We see the account of the reporting player as well as that of the reported player. We also see the reason, which is cheating with a message that we defined. Report the player again by changing the reason and message. Here we see the new report with the correct information. We also see that the total number of reports concerning this player is now 2. The daily average is 11 because I have already done several tests. Copy the product user ID of the reported player to apply a sanction to him. In the Sanctions section, add a new sanction. The types of EOS sanctions are a matchmaking restriction and a game access restriction. I would choose a game access restriction, so the player will no longer be able to play this game. You can choose the duration of this sanction. Once the duration is exceeded, the sanction will be removed and therefore deleted. I want to choose a 7-day sanction. You can define a justification that will be displayed to the player. There you can apply the sanction to one or more players by providing their product user IDs. Here, once created, we see it in the dashboard. Launch the Player 2 client who got the sanction. We see that he can still access and play the game. This is normal, because the sanction applied is recorded on the backend, but this sanction has no effect on the game client. It is up to the developer to query the player's sanctions when this player launches the game, and if the backend returns a sanction, then the game client code must therefore limit access to the game or to matchmaking. We must therefore go to the login widget to implement the code which is used to check if the player has sanctions once authenticated. In a real game, you must call this code regularly to trigger an action if ever the player obtains a sanction when playing a match, for example. I want to implement this code once the login task is finished, but I recommend you to do it in a macro that can be called at any time. Regarding sanctions, the plugin offers you 2 features. The first allows the sanctioned player to appeal the sanction. We will discover that. And the second allows the game client to obtain the sanctions of the local player. Provide the requested information to the task. Again, I recommend you to set the trusted server artifact in the game instance. We must also do this check if the player is already logged in before proceeding to the opening of the level lobby. We open the level if the task fails. A sanction is a structure containing information about the sanction. It is useful to display information to the player about the sanction applied. Depending on the type of sanction, you must define your action. For this example, I consider that all sanctions are restrictions to game access. I will create the widget that shows the player the sanction. I want to duplicate a notification widget. Open the created widget to adapt it according to our needs. Rename the button and its text. Duplicate the button to add the appeal button, which allows the sanction player to appeal the sanction. Remove combo box and editable text. Go to Graph to remove implementations. Add a variable of type EOS sanction structure which will be editable. We must add the information provided by the structure to the widget designer. Add a vertical box that will contain this information. Add a text representing the reference ID of the sanction. Duplicate the horizontal box to add the other information. Change texts according to structure information. Go to the graph to update the widget content. From the structure of the sanction, we update the texts. Timestamps are epoch timestamps in seconds. An epoch or reference epoch is an instant in time chosen as the origin of a particular calendar era. The epoch serves as a reference point from which time is measured. Use node from Unix timestamp to convert it to date time structure. Use the plugin to convert this datetime structure to ISO 8601 format. We do the same for the expiration timestamp. Call the function in the widget's construct event. Select the OK button, then add the onClicked event. The idea here is to kill the widget. Select the Appeal button, then add the onClicked event. To make an appeal, call the task Create EOS Player Sanction Appeal. We need to create a widget that is displayed when this button is clicked so that the player can fill in the information. I'll let you do it. I think you understand the principle. I test with the reason, incorrect sanction. From the sanction structure, provide the sanction reference to the task. I display a message on the screen if the appeal is created and an error message otherwise. The task returns a structure of the created appeal. It is useful to use it if you want to limit the creation of appeals per player. Finally, we kill the widget. In the macro library, duplicate a macro to implement the sanction macro. Assign the correct widget, then connect the input. Return to login widget to show sanctions. As I already told you, I consider that a sanction restricts the player's access to the game. It is up to you to deal with the sanctions and define the actions according to your needs. Go to your dev portal. To allow the player to create appeals, you must enable this option in the sanctions section. Launch the Player 2 client to test the implementation. And there you have it. Once the player is authenticated, the notification of the sanction appears. We see its reference, its creation and expiration date, as well as its type. Click OK, then login again. The sanction should be displayed again. There you go. Access to the game is restricted. Click on Appeal. The appeal is created. Go to the dev portal to see it. And there you have it. Below the sanction, we see the appeal created by the player with the correct information that we have defined. Click on Review to accept his appeal. If the appeal is approved, the sanction will be removed. And there you have it. The sanction is now closed. Click on Login. There you go. The sanction is no longer active. The player must be able to play the game. He is still on the login page because of a bug to fix. It is important to check that the length of the return sanctions list is greater than 0 before processing sanctions and actions. If you launch the Player 2 client, everything will work as it should. I draw your attention that you must take advantage of the anti-cheat service provided by EOS. It helps you make the decision to sanction a player and also to create ban automatically. This subject is out of context of the plugin, but we will show you how you can install and test the anti-cheat of EOS in the next video. That's all for this video. See you in the next one.